How well does AWS Amplify support the Next.js Pages architecture? I've built an app that isolates and tests the 12 most important features of Next.js, and I've been deploying it to different hosting platforms to verify and document how well they support the Next.js Pages architecture. So if you're a Next.js developer looking at different hosting platforms, you're in the right place, and today we're testing AWS Amplify. Make sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you want to keep up with the latest updates and see other hosting providers tested. Here's a full list of the features that I'm going to be testing today. So they include the basics like getStaticProps, getServerSideProps, but also image optimization, internationalization, the edge runtime, and a whole lot more. So what are we doing today? We're going to be deploying this application, HostCheck Next.js, to AWS Amplify and test the 12 most important features of Next.js. This is a public repo, so if you want to fork it, clone it, and test out yourself, you can definitely do that. Right now, this is on Next.js version 13.4.16. It's a Pages architecture app, and we're just going to be following the AWS deployment documentation, deploying this application as is, and seeing how well it's supported inside of AWS Amplify. I've got some Cypress tests that can run automated tests against it, and that will check and make sure what features are working, what features are not, and I'll have those results for you at the end. So I did find this documentation, Amplify support for Next.js ISR, and it does talk about their different support for Next.js. I'm not sure how up to date it is. I'm not sure how well it's how well we can trust it. I don't trust it, and that's why I built this application, because I didn't trust the documentation. I wanted to test myself before going through all the effort of deploying to different platforms. So we've got these supported features. We've got a list of some unsupported features, a little bit of extra information about images. So this is important stuff to keep up on, and hopefully this documentation is up to date, but we'll be testing it today. So the actual deployment documentation that I'm going to be following is this deploying a Next.js ISR app to Amplify. And this is these are the steps I'm going to be following and that you can do to follow to deploy your own application to AWS Amplify. So the first thing that we need to do is head over to AWS Amplify inside of the AWS console. I'm there right now. I've got a Create Next app that I tested out in the past. But what we want to do is head over to this new app, host our web app. It's on GitHub. We can continue. I've already got my GitHub account connected, so if this is a brand new process for you, you will need to connect your GitHub repository or GitHub profile. We are using the HostCheck Next.js app, and this is the main branch that we want to deploy. Again, I'm not changing any of the build settings, and I will create a new IAM role for this. I'll delete it after this is deployed. We'll save and deploy, and I then can look at all our apps. We have the host check, it's currently running. This is being provisioned, it'll build and deploy, and I'll pause the video here and we can come back when this has been deployed. It should give us a URL that we can then test against our automated Cypress tests, see what results we get back for Next.js support. This took just a few minutes, but we're now back and our application has been deployed. We were given a URL here. So if we head to that URL, this is the URL of our deployed application in AWS Amplify. And now I've got everything tested, getStaticProps. We can see that that's working. Our getServerSideProps, we're getting good results there. But we didn't come here to manually test all these. I've written those Cypress tests to make this an automated experience of testing all the different features inside of Next.js. So if we copy this, I can head back into VS Code, and inside of here, I need to go to my Cypress config. And now this isn't the correct URL. I want to paste in that new URL that we got from AWS Amplify. This URL property inside of the config is an environment variable, and it tells Cypress what URL we want to test against. So in this case, we want to test against that deployed instance to AWS Amplify. We can open up Cypress by npm run cypress open. This will open up the Cypress console or Cypress window. We're doing ET testing inside of Chrome, and I'm going to run my 12 specs against the deployed solution in AWS. We want to make sure that it's the right URL. Yes, so we're deploying, we're testing against that AWS Amplify app. API support, edge runtime support. We're seeing image optimization working through. Right now we're testing ISR. Ooh, a failed ISR test. Let's see what the rest of these come back as. Ooh, yeah. So we are expecting the Pokemon to be Gudra. this Pokemon here, and with ISR, we're expecting a refresh to happen. Then we're going to wait for the page to regenerate and then get a different Pokemon. But we are seeing the Goodra come back as well, which is not what we want. We want a new Pokemon to be in there. We are expecting the page to be revalidated and pull and create a new static page with a new Pokemon, because right now we're just asking for a random Pokemon from this endpoint. But did anything else? Everything else passed, so that's good results there, but we do need to check on ISR. Is this real or is it not? So let's go back to that deployed application. And inside of here, we'll go to the ISR page, and we are seeing, okay, a new Pokemon here, so that means that it's probably at least regenerating at some point. Inside of VS Code, I have my Incremental Static Regeneration feature, and right now we revalidate at 3. So every 3 seconds, we're expecting the page to go out and see, is there a different data coming back from my endpoint and of getStaticProps, and it should be, because we're just asking for a random Pokemon each time. So back in here, if I refresh, so that should trigger a page reload. I can refresh, and we are getting new Pokemon, but we're just not seeing the page regenerate very quickly. So let's take a peek at the ISR documentation. I can bring that over. So just a refresher, what is ISR? Next.js allows you to create or update static pages after you've built your site. Incremental static regeneration enables you to use static generation on a per-page basis without needing to rebuild your entire site. So this is that really important, nice feature of static sites where instead of having to rebuild your entire site because one page changed, we can use ISR to rebuild just that one page when it updates. And we are expecting stale data to be returned the first time that the page has been revalidated, but then subsequent pages should get the new data. And it looks like that is happening. So like here, if I refresh, we've already waited the 3 seconds. We should see the same Pokemon. We're expecting that. But if I refresh again, we should be expecting something new. And what it really seems to be coming down to, I'm continuing to refresh, is that it takes more than the second that I was expecting for the page to be rebuilt. And when we tested Azure, we did see that it was working with the 1 second rebuild. I've seen Vercel and Netlify also work with just the 1 second rebuild time. So what we're seeing though, is that it's taking AWS Amplify a bit longer to actually revalidate the page. And one factor can be that our endpoint is slow, but I'm seeing it work really well on our other pages. We're not seeing too much of a slowdown, especially with like getServerSideProps where it's server rendered, we're seeing nearly instant page generation. Looking back at the tests here, what I'm going to say is that ISR is partially supported, or ISR is supported. AWS Amplify does have working ISR. We saw that manually when we were testing it, but the performance just isn't as good as I've seen on other hosting platforms. So let's put on the page now. Let's put on the screen all the different features that are supported that we tested, and we'll put green check marks back next to everything that we saw working and tested properly and came out working fine. And then I'll just that ISR, I have a little caution there because the performance just wasn't what I was expecting. ISR, I think, is really important as well when you're working with CMSs. You don't want to have to update your entire page, or you don't want to have to rebuild your entire site just because you're updating one thing in your CMS. It's really nice to have that ISR to revalidate and rebuild that page. You're just seeing a little bit diminished performance inside of AWS Amplify. So with that, we've tested the most important features of Next.js against AWS Amplify, and we got the results. We're seeing really good results overall, just a little bit of diminished performance there with the ISR. If you liked this video, if it was helpful to you, please leave it a like and make sure to subscribe that you can keep up with future updates and other platforms that I'm going to be testing against. And also, I want to build a Next.js app router architecture app. I have not had the time to do it quite yet, but if you do want to see that, make sure to comment down below and make sure to like this video so that I get the motivation and want to make sure to keep up and make that app. But with that, thank you.